welcome everyone. Thanks for joining me today. Haven't done one of these in a few weeks or a couple of months, I think. So excited to get on. One of my favourite topics is pre-season. Love chatting about it. Before we start, a lot of what we do at Modern Soccer Coach, and I really appreciate the support, is free. Try and keep as much of it free as possible. A lot of coaches have helped me and helped me. So I like to try and pay some of that back, and I enjoy putting stuff together. But it obviously takes a lot of time, and it takes a fair bit of energy and resources as well. So to put these things together and put these events together, it helps, really helps with sponsors. So, and we try to partner up with people who we think that coaches might benefit from. So for these webinars, next couple of webinars, we've teamed up with Keyframe. And I've used their product and do use their product, and Keyframe is an animation system for coaches. So we're going to watch a promo now for 1 minute, and then we'll get stuck into it. So huge thanks to Keyframe for helping us. If you're a coach like me that enjoys the tactical stuff and putting some diagrams together, as you'll see, I use the animation program on the training pitch as well. This next week's webinar is really around that there, about how to almost enhance the environment around what you're doing with video and around animations and all that good stuff. So you'll see today a fair few examples of it. It's the cheapest product on the market. It's the highest quality. It's easy to use. It doesn't take you 4 or 5 hours to go through it. So definitely check out Keyframe. There's free demos. So I put the link up to the site. All right. And big thanks for James and Keyframe for teaming up with us. So here we go. This is really about just starting off your pre-season. I've got a lot of video to show. I've tried to make it as interactive as possible. For me, putting this together is just some ideas. So what I would do if I was starting pre-season next week, I would decide what I want to do. All right. So get your game model or your philosophy or whatever you want to call it. I know we just finished the Euros yesterday, so everyone's pretty excited about watching games. We've got the Olympics coming up. So it's a great opportunity to kind of to get the wheels turning. Where I would say, and what I would say would be different, would be to get away from idealistic. We want to be attack-minded. We want to be possession-based. And as this is about training sessions, the more specific you can be about how you want to play, it will lead you into what works for you in training and what doesn't. And I'll go into that a little bit further. So the first thing I would do is to look at the objectives of how you want to play the game. Where I would start would be looking at that organization. I'm going to use some video clips from my current work at Racing Louisville, alongside Christy and Bree and Clifton and Serge. But I'm not really going to go into the tactical side of it. Everything will be centered around attack and organization today. So this is not our game model. So this would be how I would look at making an example of tactical organization.
So here would be some examples of attacking principles that you might want to incorporate with your team. The first one would be maximum width in the build-up. So usually starting from the goalkeeper, usually incorporating fullbacks, getting them as wide as possible in the initial build, being aggressive with that position. And what that'll do is give more space for the midfielders, open up passing lanes that should allow you to progress the ball. In this example here, both fullbacks start wide. They use the central space to progress the ball. Then the fullback comes inside, the attacker goes wide, asks some questions of the opposition fullback and creates a nice finish. Another idea might be to create central overloads to advance the ball. So how are you going to progress the ball? If it's with a back four, 2 centre backs, getting them comfortable in that space, allowing them to maybe disconnect the opposition number 9 if you're playing against a lone striker, getting them comfortable carrying the ball. And then once that picture is created, is the centre back comfortable in attacking that space over the halfway line? Centre back that's a dribbler can be very, very useful. Also a centre back who's got a range of passing as well. So again, maximum width in this one. What that does, takes away or opens up the block ahead of the centre back. So the full back pops out, the wide midfielder gets disconnected as they go with them, and then that opens the lane up for the centre back in possession to drive forward. This one she doesn't dribble, but she does hit diagonal pass that gets them into the final third. So just different variations depending on what you want to do. Or another idea, forward movement ahead of the ball carrier. This is one of my favourite principles. Is sometimes possession systems create numbers around the ball and then not ahead of the ball. So this one's Barcelona, and this is why Barca were probably that good, was because they could change and flip it really quickly. There's the numbers behind the ball or around the ball, and then once they switch the play, there's no numbers now ahead of the ball, but very, very quickly there's the numbers ahead of the ball, and they all do different things. These 3 players in particular, 4 players. Messi pops out, Dani Alves releases the ball and pops in, Pedro checks his run and then makes another run, and then David Villa attacks the space, all within 3-4 seconds. Nightmare to defend against. Creation of wide overloads. If you're going to be a possession based team and you want to work the ball into wide areas, can you be comfortable in manipulating the opposition's positioning? So here, I think this is a good example of, first of all, creating the numbers in that wide channel. So there you go, there's your 3 players. They're all almost in a straight line. It's not really asking questions at the minute of the opposition, but just with the movement from all 3 players now, this creates questions and opens up some valuable space on the edge of the box. So should I stay, should I go, from the defenders, and then some more space is opened up for the ball carrier to score. Always remember, I think this is interesting, that whenever you're building your in possession models and your in possession principles, to remember that how you set up and how you structure your team in possession will always set up how you try and win the ball back. So the moments, although the 4 moments are separated, they all interact, and I think this is a good piece of insight from Jose Mourinho about it.
Of course, depends on us. Every one of us is a manager, every one of us thinks differently. But I think when a team has the ball, you have to anticipate the moment you are going to lose the ball. So let's play. We have the ball, let's play. We have 11 players to participate in the attacking organization. But the moment we lose the ball is a moment that you have to anticipate and not to react just after that.
So without going into the transition and into all the 4 moments, just to keep this relative to attacking organisation, this is just an example of what Jose's talking about. Arsenal here build with 4, including the goalkeeper, a diamond, just to get themselves out against 2 strikers. They start very deep. If players around the ball, another player drops in. Looks a bit messy, but it works. In this picture here now, once they start to get ahead of the ball and you have those forward runners, you then have structure and shape. Now that 4 has changed, the shape of the 4 has changed to probably a traditional 2 centre backs and a holder. But then ahead of the ball, where Jose's talking about, you have structure and shape around it. So you have players here, a lot of red shirts. If you lose the ball, you'll have support. And in this area here, then you can counter press. So preparing for the transition tactically with your shape. So here they can try a longer ball, it breaks down, and then the players around the ball are all in a position to be aggressive. So now you've changed from attack to defend, and all these players are still in the game for your team because they can either press the ball or they can compress space, which helps the presser apply more pressure aggressively. Well, this player goes to the ball, compressing space, goes to the ball and holds their space, and they win the ball back higher up the pitch.
So that would be an example of basically going through the 4 moments of the game: attacking organisation, attacking transition, defensive organisation, defensive transition, and then trying to build through how you want to play specifically in those moments. And the more specific that you make it, the easier it'll be to decide whether exercises, drills, activities, whatever you want to call them, are relative to your team. And that's, for me, the biggest thing of pre-season is don't waste time. Do things that, I think everything has value. I think fitness has value. I think weights rooms have value. I think different soccer exercises have value. But the biggest thing is, do they have value against something else? Is there an opportunity cost? Every time you do something, you choose not to do something else. So is a marathon every day important? Does it hurt your team? It might increase stamina, build team chemistry, blah, blah, blah. But is it more productive than playing the game of soccer? Probably not. So that's where I would say is to actually get involved with your staff on this here. If you've got 1 assistant coach, 2 assistant coaches, a team manager, whatever it is to go through how you're going to play. And then, as Bruce Lee calls it, hack away at the inessential, like chop away things that have no meaning to what you do. They might be your favorite drill of all time. Maybe it's something that you're minimizing, but I would say make everything as relevant as possible to what you're doing. So once you establish how you're going to play, then you want to make sure you maximize every minute on the training field. That's where I think you need a training philosophy, and we talk about a match philosophy and principles, but I think you need to go one step further. I think you need to decide how you're going to work on a daily basis. We talk about culture a lot as coaches, and sometimes culture is non-contextual, which is hashtags and phrases that don't really have value when they are aligned with the soccer environment. So I would say make sure what you're doing on the training pitch matters. So an example of that there would be this clip from Ralph Ragnick, which these would be 2 things or 3 things that personally I try to align in my work. What I would say would be my training principles or philosophies.
I mean, in fact, all our trainings on the pitch, when we train tactics and strategy, our style of football, it's all about exaggerations. So we play with the so-called provocational rules. Those rules force the player to play in a way that is even more difficult than the game on Saturday. So by that we try to train the brain. In fact, it's about overloading the brain and trying to put the brain to learn and adapt in situations when you are under pressure regarding space and time. And it's about finding solutions in those situations in training, so that in fact on game day, on Saturday, the players even think, it feels easier than in training. And that's most of the training sessions when we train tactically, what our training is about.
So I love that there, because it's trying to change how we think about pre-season and try to think or change how we think about the game. So every training, every day, and we talk a lot about game realism, I think, as coaches, but I don't think we really appreciate, or we don't send the message or communicate that every game is different. You can play the same team 3 times a week and every game could be different. So every day should be a little bit different and should engage the brain in doing that there. So I think the starting point in pre-season traditionally has been fitness, and we're all concerned about whether we're fit enough. But I think the game is moving now where the fitness levels are sky high. But you're not going to miss out if you don't have a sports science department. You want to make sure you're improving soccer players, and you're always trying to get better at playing the game. The way we think about pre-season, and we talk about getting a fitness base, fitness is huge. The game is played at 100 miles an hour today at most levels. So the fitness part of it is massive. But we also want to get better at playing the game. So what I would say is, and I heard the analogy from Dan Wright about the diet, about a player's diet, and that's how I would look at training. As I really like that, to say that, you know, there's no such thing that's really bad for you, but you're trying to work in quite a few things. You know, opposed, unopposed. Some things, like Ralph Ragnick's talking about, some things you want to get mentally making a decision. Getting them used to making decisions. And then some days, if it's a post-game, after a game, it's a regen session, you're not really going to be overloading them cognitively. You're going to be trying to almost reduce the stress, and that might take a little bit of emphasis away from decisions, the complexity of exercises. So I think what you choose to do on the grass is vitally important. It just depends. So putting this together, what I'm trying to say is that what I've tried to do is look at different types of exercises, where I would use them and why, without saying that there's one size fits all, because we all know now that one size doesn't fit all. Even when you're full-time environments, they tend to do a lot. If you're not a full-time environment, then you've got to be selective and prioritize what you want to do the most. So the first thing I would do would be the warm-up activities, and again, trying to make that as related as possible, trying to make it as enjoyable as possible, but then also trying to link it to how you want to play the game. So I'm not against unopposed passing activities if they're prepared correctly and if they have an objective for them. So here is a little bit on how I would design that there with the team.
So different types of variations, just depending on what you want to do and what you want to get out of it. Sometimes it can be small groups, small spaces, looking for combination plays. This is just different variations of a wide passing. I would just make sure that you're probably limiting this to 5 players, 6 players max, so they can get as much repetition. You're managing the time as well, so you can keep it short and intense. You're looking at the detail of body shape. You're looking at when to spin off, when to receive, passing foot, receiving foot, all these little things that you want to bring into a session. Sometimes they're reminders. Sometimes you can manipulate the physical load to get a little bit more out of it, or even manage it and get less out of it. You can go right side, left side. You can change the variations here. Little bounce passes, add them in. Different types of progressions, not too complicated. You want to build the player's confidence going into the session sometimes with these activities. Another idea is a passing square, where you would have, again, this would be more low decision making but very, very high physical load in terms of the sprinting in short spaces. So the only rules are you can't pass diagonally back in the square, and you can't pass back to where you received it. So the person that passes the ball always has to receive at a new angle and get there quickly. Players must take 2 touches, so open up, receive, pass, and that player should be there. So again, it's just an activity that These are two groups going with 3 players on each group. We've got pink square, blue square, and again you can see here how much the movement is important in it. Angles are important in it, and if you have two groups going against each other and trying to count the passes, you can see now that it becomes a competition. You can see it speeds up. Speeding up might lead to a mistake or two because they're trying to go against each other, but that's okay as well. So sometimes that can replicate the game where a ball might go astray or a mistake might happen. You might want to bring that out in a basic exercise sometime. And then it's just about progressing that there and deciding what you want out of your main session. I believe that if your session is to be on combination play and attacking, then maybe this here is just a basic diamond to start. You go around the diamond, again, just paying attention to angles, when to receive, when to check in, so you're never receiving the ball static, and get the detail right, weight of pass, quality of pass, where does she want it. And then if you want to create different variations, you might be able to do that into the exercise. So if it's an attacking exercise, you might look at progressions that look to build a combination into goal. So in this one here, you've used the mini goal. So instead of going around the diamond, now it's a bounce pass. That player then receives it and then goes into the far corner. So just the progression of a warm-up gets them finishing. All players generally like playing into goals, so I try and do that as many times as possible with passing activities, just to engage them a little bit more, increase the tempo maybe, and then it can then progress into a crossing activity where the ball then goes wide and the other group is incorporated in it. Becomes a little bit more complicated. This one here is just something different, a variation, similar but different. Double diamond, and then it goes into different combinations into a mini goal. Again, something just a short 5-6 minutes before you go into the exercise. You can be as creative as possible or as complex as possible with the combinations, depending on where you want to take the players that day in terms of maybe physically or mentally. So it can start off real simple. Again, similar to the last one, the players typically enjoy playing the ball into a little mini goal, a little target, challenge themselves. And then the variations can be different combinations. So this one here, little give and go, and then into the mini goal. So again, once you incorporate combinations, are they consistent with things that you're working on in different areas? So this can be a wide player, checking in, checking out, double movement. Again, I would keep the group small for this, so they're generally always on the ball, they're generally always moving, so the intensity is high and the energy stays as high as possible from the group. And then you can coach within this. You can just go around. You might pick a player or two, you might pick a group or two and challenge them a little bit more than others. Some players might just want to ease into the training session, and you want to try and spark just that speed to go into the next activity when you probably have some competition. This one here, a little bit more complex, 2 or 3 bounce passes. So again, the more you add in, the more it's liable to break down sometimes, but that's okay as well, because they're going to experience that in the training session too. So different variations of those there. There's hundreds you can do, absolutely hundreds, but you always want to engage the players, something different every day, so they're seeing different pictures. You can also then move it into tactical patterns depending on what you want. This is a back 3 attacking pattern with centrally. Different variations, get the passers or their back 3 in different positions, so they might rotate. Looks like a 3-5-2. This one here is a traditional back four. Again, advancing the ball with a fullback, getting those two centre backs high, longer passes, cross and finishing using the width. Depending on what you want to get out of your team, depending on what you want to get out of the session. This one here is a higher starting point, so just different combinations playing off two supporting players in midfield, but again, different angles on the pass, different distances, different starting points. Finishing with a cross, which isn't from as wide as you might be. You might invert your wide players a little bit, so different variations. And again, this is more of an attacking one, trying to get players in the box or trying to get runners ahead of the ball. Just different principles that you want to build out. You can design your sessions through that. Again, sometimes the physical loads will depend on this as well.
So there's some ideas around generally starting training sessions. Again, I've nothing against opposed, unopposed. I like the unopposed stuff to start from a personal viewpoint. People say, yeah, but what about a rondo to start? And just because you have structure and doesn't mean you don't have intensity. And likewise the other way around. Just because you have a 4v2 rondo doesn't mean you have decisions in there. And doesn't mean there's not long lines in terms of the mentality of the players. Sometimes you can see a 4v2 rondo, the players are static the whole time and it looks very, very poor, and they've started the session almost behind than they would. So sometimes you especially when you're looking at the physical side of it as well, you can control distances, sprints in the unopposed work. So it can be more manipulative from a coaching standpoint in terms of bringing out those physical metrics and what you want to do. Where I would say then is you want to get out of that quickly. I mean, I wouldn't do that there for more than 15 minutes. It's the technical work. It's the base of the session. You could put it at the back end or the front end. Sometimes you want to do the technique at the back end and try to test it with fatigue. But when you get at the front end, it can get you going in the session. The shorter you do it, the better it's going to be, and the sharper it's going to be sometimes. So that's where I would prefer myself personally. But then building in smaller spaces, rondo exercise, so rondo type activities. I've said this on a few webinars. I'm not a big fan of just generally standing around and joking and playing a 10v2 or even a 4v2. I think when it goes back to the initial stage of how do you want to play, reduce all the things that waste time. And for me, wasting time is non-contextual exercises. Yeah, you could do a thesis on a 4v2 rondo, but for me, the connection between exercise and game isn't strong enough. I don't want my players to play 20 passes inside one 5x5 area. I want them to get out of that area and progress up the pitch. So personally, it just doesn't do a lot for me. You might be different. Coaches can be different, so that's fine. This is how I would structure. I love rondo type activities. This is how I would design them and structure them.
So when you're designing your tactical rondos, I think you do so with the type of game that you're going to play in mind that we talked about. Back four, fullbacks that can get up and down, so you want to create those wide overloads. You want maximum width in the build. So something like this, there's your back four, there's your midfield three or plus your centre forward that you want to look at that central spine. There's your opposition in yellow, and then the principles that you want to bring out in this for me would be creating enough ball movement to switch it and then having the support underneath it as quick as possible, and building a game like that. So a 4v4 plus 4, so trying to get 3 passes in one square and then breaking out, supporting the ball with the fullbacks, providing the width, and then again looking for those 3 passes, using the overload to work the ball centrally, and then once it's switched, can you get underneath it again? So quick possession to move it. It might get a bit messy. The transition helps with the intensity, so those mini goals incentivize the defensive team to win the ball back. And then it's about those angles that we talked about and the technical work, the ball movement, to create the space, to find the highest player and play through the block or around the block in this case, and then go and support the ball from the wide players and try to build it again. Short games of that allow you to paint the pictures that you want to create tactically. This is a player favourite, where 6v6 plus 6, you can build a back 4 plus 1 plus 2. 3 players can press, 3 players screen. If you lose it, you're in the middle. So players really enjoy this. It's high intensity. There's the square, really small space. There's the middle area where the defensive team can screen the passes. So again, it's about that quick ball movement, getting 3 passes, and then you can play, in this case, over the block. And then the other defenders can go. Quick transitions. Defensively, you're looking to apply pressure. And then attacking ways, you're trying to solve pressure. Very simple. Players love it because it's fast and it's competitive and it's fun. And quick transitions from the restarts as well. So these are short games, just allowing the players opportunities to solve pressure in tight spaces. So you can see why they would enjoy it. But you can also organise, you can have a back 4 in this, you can have a back 3 and 2 wide players and someone underneath it. So you can create certain scenarios within this here. It's just what you want to bring out of it that day or that training session. This is an example of another tactical rondo, just a tempo 4v4 plus 3. You know, we've all seen it, but it's, in terms of the transitions and the speed of those transitions, this is Liverpool from their pre-season a couple of years ago, and I really love this clip because when the ball turns over, you can see the players sprinting in, so the intensity has to be there. There you go. Look how quick they come in. It breaks down, they get it back. So I think if you're going to work in small spaces, the intensity has to be there. On both sides of the ball as well, the ball movement has to be quick and the defensive actions have to be really sharp to maximise the time that you're doing with it. So you can see the detail there of ball movement and body shape. Even the pressing is at a really, really high level. Quality stuff. And then you can just design, again, different things that you want to bring out. Breaking out 5 passes and you can go to any goal. Different pictures. I always like drive out, break out rondos because I like to encourage players to get out of spaces. This one is a build-up rondo, so, and this one here is similar to the transfer game, but you're looking at progressing it through an 8 or a 10. So again, just changing the aspects of the game to try and bring out certain tactical things that you might want that day. The transitions always at 100% speed, always at maximum effort, because that then challenges the team in possession to solve problems. This one here's a shooting one. So 2 18-yard boxes and you're trying to shoot from your own half. So again, use a rondo to fill in the blank is what I would say. This one here is use a rondo to find the middle player under pressure.
Yeah, that would be my personal advice when it comes to doing the rondos, would be to be as specific as possible in terms of what you want to create. And lining that then up with your game model and objectives through that there, and communicating that every day so the players can see it. I also then think that in terms of the physical load would be like, there's a lot of short spaces, so similar to the technical work, I wouldn't go through a full week of just doing the technical work and then rondos and being it. I think then you have to increase the playing size of the playing area. If you've got good sports science around you, like I'm fortunate to have, they can give you good advice on that there as well. So I would say once you get into the bigger spaces, again, you're looking at 8v8 but 9v9. I don't believe just playing 8v8 and 9v9 is good enough, to be honest. I know the players might enjoy that, but I think going back to Guardiola's point about, and Ralph Ragnick's point about linking everything and putting decision making in, I think sometimes you need rules and conditions and constraints to bring out different things in the 9v9. I think if you play 9v9 for 10, 15 minutes with no rules, I think the tempo will drop and you might actually do more damage than good, because players can build bad habits and that can become a negative as well. So this is where I would probably give some ideas towards 9v9 positional games, giving people into those situations that they're going to experience in 11v11.
So into bigger spaces now and trying to look at some ideas around getting principles into these games, 9v9 games. 5 gates here. You've got to play through the gates before you can score. So maybe it's play through 1 gate and then you can score. Maybe it's play through 2 gates, then you can score. And you can score on the transition if it's within 6 seconds. So this can bring out different ideas, different themes. Again, bigger spaces, so you're looking at manipulating pressure. Using the goalkeepers in the build as well. And then variety of passes, so longer pass here breaks the pressure and then opens up space further down the field, which is what the gates are designed to do. They're not just placed randomly, they're placed where you can get maximum width, and they're also placed in the middle so you can switch the play at a higher starting point. So again, always being aware of the opposition's shape and just a possession game with longer passes through the gates. And then once they get 3 gates, they can score. A game like this here, it just works on those details, those angles that I talked about in the warm-up activities. Because they're bigger spaces, sometimes these things can get lost in 11v11 games. And I really like it because it incorporates the goalkeepers. There's the maximum width, gives the goalkeeper that look, and also gives them the option of playing a little bit longer. It's got headers in it, some defensive activities as well. Physically, it's a very demanding game because you've got to press. You've also got to work very, very hard in possession, because you've got to get underneath those gates and make the field as big as possible. Always looking for that player in possession, the player out of possession, the supporting player, to make sure that their angles help the player in possession. You can also play a different kind of game, an attacking game. This would be set up to attack central areas, 3 teams of 6, using those wide spaces for fullbacks, and just to combine and look to combine in the middle, create goal scoring opportunities. This would be more of a final third activity that you could use with your game model and design a training session around that, and just getting the players comfortable in these spaces where they can shoot, combine. Bit of a variation as well. There's crosses involved from the neutral players. There's bounce passes. Different types of goals. There's transitions. There's the cross we talked about. Not a very complex game. Players enjoy it because it's competitive. It's fast paced. It gives them the opportunity to problem solve and be a bit more creative than sometimes tactical sessions typically do. And they're always within shooting distance typically, where they can have some fun with it. Another idea could be if the objective is still to build or circulating the ball, if this is a different 6v6 plus 6 game where you can use the outside players and you're trying to keep the ball in a certain area before a switch, always having the transition, just manipulating the rules and the conditions of the game to suit. This would be a 6-goal game. If you're looking for maximum width and you're looking for those wide overloads, then create a game like this where 6 goals. Something different here, you're looking at breaking out with a +2. Really tough game to play, to problem solve. Different angles, different shapes, gets the players to think, and you've still got that goal scoring opportunity at the end of it. And then a really complex one that I stole from Nagelsmann. I saw this one here where you're trying to break down one side. Really challenging the players to problem solve there.
Okay, I got 2 videos left, 2 little aspects of it, and then we'll go into some questions. Before I do, I just want to again say that the big thanks to Keyframe as well. If you're on this and you want to support what we're doing at Modern Soccer Coaching, keep the majority of stuff free. 2 ways to do that. One is support the sponsors. Keyframe, fantastic illustration tool if you want to use diagrams, and we'll talk about that in the webinar next week. How to incorporate more of that there in your work and try to communicate tactically with your players. Definitely recommend Keyframe. The trial is up there, and I'll post that as well. The other aspect is to support Modern Soccer Coach just through the shop. I'll do a special offer today, and that is if you buy one of the lockdowns. So we did a set of webinars. There's 25, I believe, from last year. Presentations, Jesse Marsh, Adine Osman Basic, top people. They're not available on the store, or they were up on the website for 9 months. We took them down and we just use it now to try and support what we're doing. So if you want to support that work, and if you purchase one of them today, I will throw in a free Modern Soccer Coach 433 book, loads of activities like this here, loads of session ideas. There's only 20 available, so I'll keep them up for the rest of the webinar. And like I said, if you want to support, it's only $30. You get a free book and you get all the webinars which was $1, but it's well short of that now. So appreciate all the help, appreciate all the support. We put as much stuff on the website as possible. We'll put this, when a couple of people are asking about this here, we'll put this replay up for a short period of time. And then we'll probably take it down as well, because it's got a lot of Racing Louisville stuff on there. So I don't want to leave it up for too long. Okay, 2 videos left. So we are now going to look at, so when you're in 9v9 in the bigger spaces, it can be somewhat of a slower game. If you want to increase the intensity of preseason activities and add something to that aspect of the diet, I would recommend more transitional exercises, not as tactical based in terms of solving problems, maybe attack versus defense in a different way, more space. You're looking at players to not problem solve with numbers, so to speak, but problem solve with space is the way I sometimes look at it. So here would be some ideas on transitional and really high speed, high intensity exercises that you can get a lot of physical output from as well.
Some transitional ideas. This one here starts as a 3v2 towards goal, and then as soon as the ball is finished, it becomes a 4v3 going the other way. So you've got to defend, you've got to attack. Both teams have to attack with an overload and defend against an overload as well. And you can put different variations on how the restarts, where it finishes. So in this one here, you can see 3v2 towards goal. You want to encourage that attack to finish in about 6 seconds or less, and then really quick transitions into the 4v3. Encourage the players to get ahead of the ball, and then encourage the players to transition again. You can see here a lot of work to be done, and it builds really good habits. Allows players to drive on the ball as well, and then if the space is taken away to drive into, then they have to problem solve, and they should be within range to shoot on goal as well. So it's not just about running, it's not just about dribbling. This game can create different pictures, finishing. Players typically enjoy it because it puts them in front of goal. This one's a little bit different, conditions are different, but again, this is just an example that you can bring out certain principles that you want in your transitioning. Getting those numbers in the box, getting those numbers ahead of the goal, driving at players, finishing. Movement in the final third. These would be short sets, 90 seconds, 2 minutes, keeping it as sharp as possible. And always encouraging, especially positionally encouraging your centre forwards to get in front of the goal and finish, and give the player on the ball as many opportunities. This is a great transition again defensively, so it's not just about attacking, it's about getting back and working for each other as well. Quick restarts from servers or coaches, and the faster the game goes, the more these players have to be challenged to play as quick as they can, which they enjoy. And again, there's another piece of great defending that we always try and highlight. When players go above and beyond, stops it on the goal line, gets out of the net, sprints to the other end, and almost finishes it. So you want to highlight that there as well when we're reviewing it. Another idea is just, this would be more transitionally to solve it defensively. So it's a 2v2 with zones, 2 defenders underneath. Now they have to solve it. They try to score through the mini goals initially, so the initial transition isn't on, comes back, and now they have to solve it through possession. So different types of positional or transitional games can challenge players in different ways. This one here starts 6v6. There's a 1v1 field, and when the coach shouts out the number of the player, the players have to sprint in and play 1v1 against each other. The other teams deal with the underloads, and it just adds a different picture. The 1v1 defending adds a different picture to a game, and it challenges players to communicate as well. This next game is transition in a 1v1 wide area, so more your 7 and 11s defending against fullbacks, just challenging that there and working on that there after a shot. Really hard work physically. And then this is just a basic one. 4 teams of 2. You attack, you defend, you recover. Attack, defend, recover. Again, short, basic, but builds certain principles in there.
So those would be my ideas in terms of structure in session outside 11v11, because I wanted to, obviously, by sharing a lot of about the stuff where I'm working with racing in Louisville at the minute, I wanted to not to show any tactical stuff. So I'm not going to go into the 11v11 stuff and how to structure through that there. This was more to look at session design and setup. So again, that diet, opposed, unopposed, should I do it? Yeah, as long as it's related. Rondos, should I design them? Yeah, as long as it's related to the way you play. Building the spaces higher and building the spaces bigger in terms of incorporating your principles. And then transitionally, sometimes you might have a re-entry day and you might want to push the physical limits a little bit more. Those transitional games can really be helpful in doing that there. The last part that I would look to encompass when designing a program, and I'll take some questions if you want to put them in, would be to have individual time for the players. So you can do some positional work after training sessions, but it's something that I've kind of moved on the last 2 to 3 years, has been not to structure every single minute and have some time at the end where, especially in the pre-season, where players can enjoy the ball a little bit and try some things and maybe build a little bit of confidence in some positional areas, and allowing them space to do that for 10, 15 minutes at the end, I think can be really, really beneficial. So sometimes I think as coaches, when we don't win games or when we struggle to score, we say, well, we lacked creativity in the final third and we lacked players taking responsibility on the ball. But sometimes you look at training sessions and that's all they are. There's no creativity. It's all structure. And players don't take any responsibility because the coach takes all responsibility. So I think just almost challenging yourself to give them some space, and maybe there is a framework around that there. Maybe there's a special topic or an area that you want them to work at through individual development plans. But this would be just a quick video that allowing players that I've experienced in Louisville and Chicago just time at the end to enjoy the ball can actually bring out some pretty decent stuff. So what I love about that clip is the fact that players are laughing and smiling. Even goalkeepers jump in, so sometimes as a coach, it's good to take a back seat and let them enjoy the game, especially, it's everyone where games are coming thick and fast at the start of the season. You need that energy and you need those relationships to be really, really positive. And you always want to get players back towards enjoying their work and making themselves better and looking at how they can improve. And if you link that towards your training design, I think you've got a better chance of players coming in every day with enthusiasm, with passion for the game, and with enjoyment of being in your environment. And I think those things are massively important, even if your fitness levels aren't where they need to be. If you train the right way over time, they'll get there. If their attitudes are really good, they'll get there a lot quicker. So I think don't look at how everything measures on a periodization spreadsheet or an app or anything got there. Look at people's faces when they come into work every day, and I think that's something that I've got better at reading. I don't know if I've got better at impacting, but I've definitely got better at being more aware of the importance of it. I think a mistake that I made probably as a college coach was being too rigid with the whole session design. And I think the more flexible you are, it might actually make you uncomfortable as a coach. But I think sometimes you get that back with the attitude, enthusiasm, smiles, and every level needs that. So thanks so much for listening and staying on. Like I said, I'll put please before you go, I'll answer some questions now if you want to put some questions. I'll also put next week's webinar. When I go into that, I'll talk about how to use video. Like you can see, we video every training session. Sometimes we video from 2 different angles. Sometimes we use a drone and one closer to the field. And I think today a lot of coaches are getting better at working that together and merging it together. So next week I'm going to talk about ways you can do that there, and looking at some ways that we can help the players understand what we're trying to do a little bit better. So please join me for that. I'll put that up on the side. Also check out Keyframe. Please support the sponsors. It's a tremendous product. If you're going into your season and you want to communicate on scouting or communicate on feedback, and you want some telestrations, this is the best tool for it. So I'll put that back up. Thank you so much, and I will take some questions.